able to share my screen. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So the first thing we'll talk about is what is group childcare. So group childcare refers to multiple children being cared by different types of caregivers. Some of the benefits that there are to childcare is an opportunity for them to have some socialization with their peers, learning to cooperate, cooperative play, so learning about sharing and taking turns. Sometimes it can be new doing structured activities and routines. It can be hard when it's just you and a baby at home to stay in a routine. So getting them into the routine of, you know, we get up at this time, then we do this, that all helps later down the line for getting ready for school. Then and it's professional care. So, you know, both Jane and I are RACEs. So we've gone to school to get our early childhood education degree, and we're registered with the College of ECEs. Some of the drawbacks of group childcare is they are part of a ratio. So it's not one-to-one care, which can be hard. Sometimes there's a bit more of an exposure to getting sick. Lots of germs sometimes go around childcares. You are limited to what the hours of operation are. So it might not be as flexible as if you had, you know, your mom or a family member watching your child. And then there are, you know, it's been a difficult couple years for us in this field of staff shortages and turnover. So there can be a lot of change in your little one's life.
Sonia, do you see the waiting room on your screen? I realize I can't see it with mine right now when
I do
here.
not.
Okay. Let me just, I'm just gonna leave for a second.
Sure.
Oh, wait, here we go. I think everybody is in. Just want to make sure. Okay. I go to the next screen.
So then now I'm going to talk about some of the childcare options that we have in Halton. So some of the different options that you've got is licensed and unlicensed childcare. The main difference there is licensed childcare is regulated by the Ministry of Education. So there's a lot of standards that we have to follow. We undergo inspections. Our staff have certain criteria and qualifications. As I mentioned, there's child to staff ratio requirements. So what that looks like is in a toddler room, there would be one staff to every 5 children. And in the preschool room, it's one staff to every 8 children. In licensed childcare, some families that might need help paying for childcare might qualify for subsidy. That's one of the things. You can't get subsidy for an unlicensed program. Yeah. So the unlicensed childcare is the next one. So that one is not regulated by the Ministry of Education. They don't require the caregivers to have any formal qualifications. Legally, they can only care for up to 5 children in their homes. But it's very different. So in an unlicensed childcare, you don't have control perhaps over who's coming in or out of the house. There's not anyone coming in to do inspection. Another type of childcare, it's an informal childcare agreement. So that could be a nanny, an au pair, a family member, a grandparent. I know I stayed home with my grandparents when my mom had to go back to work. So it can be a great option for families as well. Some of the other differences also is a for-profit childcare or not-for-profit childcare. The main difference there, a not-for-profit childcare, any of the money that is being made gets reinvested back into the center. So it's not OPCC is a not-for-profit childcare. So again, any surplus funds that we have at the end of the year gets reinvested back into programming for OPCC to help facilitate in the community. And then you've also got the option of doing either full-time childcare or part-time childcare. I always get asked the question, which is the best one? Which one should I do? And really the best childcare option is the one that works for you and your family. So it's really important to think about your child, what your child needs are, what your schedule is, and also what your budget is. And just to say, if there are any questions at any time, please just interrupt me. Happy to go through any questions that you have. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the philosophies of learning. There's so many. We're only going to touch on three. The first one is play-based learning, and this is learning through play. This is almost, I like to think of it as a child's job. They get up in the morning, that's how they learn about the world. They will, in the dramatic center, they may act out a scene that they saw at your house, with mom and dad having a coffee in the morning, and they're going to make coffee for their friends. So that's how they just learn all about the world around them. It's through play. Play-based learning is also what is happening in kindergarten now. So it's an easy transition if your childcare is play-based learning, then going into kindergarten in Halton, because that is how the board does it as well. The next approach is the Reggio Emilia approach. And this one really sees children, they kind of guide they follow their own interests. Teachers and children work together a lot. There's a lot of project work that they do. So you may see, just trying to think of an example, you may see a child that's interested in plants. And so that, they'll really go through the life cycle of the plant, and they might grow some plants. They learn how to take care of them, the watering, and it's learning that happens over time. So you can really, they can revisit it. So they can learn about and learn about one thing and then see how it goes, in a few days. They can measure the growth of the plant. And so then that is really done through documentation, which is amazing. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to take a look at our early on sites, or even here through Maine. The teachers put all the documentation on the walls to make the learning visible. So you can really get the opportunity to see what's happening in the classroom. The next method is the Montessori method. Jane and I have talked about this one quite a bit. Again, it's really, this one is, you hear a lot about it. That seems to be the buzzword right now is, oh, Montessori. There's not one that's better or worse than the other. It's just a different approach. The Montessori method, children really learn by doing. They don't actually call the toys in the classroom toys, they call them materials. And there's usually only one right way of playing with them. And it's not really playing, but it's, almost solving how the pieces fit together only one way. And that might work with some children, and it might not work with other children. So that's, parents, when they're trying to think of what childcare center they should send their child to, they really want to find one that aligns with their values and the needs of their child.
Exactly. I'm curious if people have any more questions about play-based learning. I did a workshop in the past for kindergarten, and there were a lot of questions about what that meant. And I think there's a misunderstanding, Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong, that some people believe they just play all day and that's all they do, and there's no learning going on. And so I think we really want to make sure that you know that through the play, they are learning so much. And teachers set up tables very much so in OPCC, I can guarantee you from other places that I've seen with intentionality. So
Mhm.
yes, they're playing and yes, they're having fun, but the way they set up the tables, they have to match red to red or this shape to that shape. And so without even knowing it, they're learning, and it's amazing what they will learn about volume and shapes and math and English and language and all that. I'm not pushing one over the other. I just want to make sure that people understand that play-based learning is very much an educational based play approach.
That's right. I mean, they may not sit down and say, "Oh, we're going to learn about math right now."
Right,
But through their playing, they're learning those concepts. So it's all familiar to them. And because they're learning about those concepts through a way that's interesting to them, they're more likely to continue and be able to build upon what's happening. If they're counting teddy bears
right.
rather than, just counting, tally marks, um, it they're coming to the same answer, but they want to count the teddy bears rather than the tally marks. So
Exactly. And they get a little bit more excited about it
yeah,
because it's fun and teachers follow their lead about what they're interested in. So they might create a whole activity around something that, animals or dinosaurs or something because they
yeah.
realize they're interested in that. So, yeah. Okay. Should I go to the next screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. How to begin.
So you've decided it's time. How to begin now? Best advice I can say, start early. So sometimes that means, I have had families reach out to me and they're still pregnant. They haven't had their baby, but they want to get on the waiting list. With the introduction of the Canada-wide funding, we have a lot of people on our wait lists. So that's the best advice I could give you, is start early. There's nothing wrong with putting your names on lots of different wait lists. Having a first choice and a second, third, and fourth, that's okay. You just don't want to leave it to the last minute and then find out, oh my gosh, there's 300 people ahead of me. So that's my biggest advice. Next thing is start to do your research. So that can be, there is a directory. It's called the Ontario Ministry of Education's Childcare Directory. So that's a great one to look at. You can also reach out to the region of Halton. I believe it's on the Halton region website. Um, Word of mouth. So check in with, other people in your neighborhood or people you work with. Even if there's a local school, there may be someone that can talk to you there. And also looking online, check the Google reviews. Not always, you know, this is just one tool you have. You wouldn't just strictly sign up based on a Google review. The next thing you want to do is perhaps book a tour. So going in for a tour, asking questions. Um, we'll go
Mm,
through, I'll talk a little bit
okay.
more about that, kind of what questions to ask for. Um, Also, then you want to check and see what the fees are, and see if, what subsidy available. Is that an option? Are they participating in the Canada-wide program? Um, and then once you've got all your questions, you choose a spot, you will pay an initial deposit, which is usually, so your deposit is usually your last month childcare. So it's kind of like, if you think of it in terms of, you end up paying like first and last month's rent, your deposit for childcare is applied to the very last month of childcare that you're going to be having. So if you're starting and your child's an infant, it would be, that deposit would be used to the last month. If your child was then moving up to the toddler program and the fees were changing, you may be credited back a little bit of money. So just, you don't want to lose sight of what you've paid as a deposit. Okay.
Any questions about any of that? Okay.
So I'm sure most of you have heard about it. It's called the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Program. We tend to just say CWELC here. So this is a federal initiative, goes across Canada, and it's designed to make licensed childcare more affordable for families across Canada. So the ultimate goal is for childcare to be down to $12 a day. The only province that did that previously was in Quebec, and I think they had $10 a day childcare. With CWELC, the plan will be $12 a day. So some of the benefits, reduce fees and affordability. So it makes it a little bit easier for families that couldn't have afforded it before. It kind of helps to level that playing field. Universal access, so it's across, as long as your childcare has signed up, it's for everybody. So you don't have to apply separately for it. It's there for you. If, and even then, even if you've, with CWELC, we still have some families that require a little bit of support. So they are able to access subsidy from the region, like Halton region as well on top of that. The flexibility, it gives you that choice. You're not tied to just, you can have that quality care. You can choose the childcare option that just suits you, not having to be stuck just thinking of what can I afford. It can really, if it's full-time or part-time, like it just gives you that flexibility. And it improves access to quality care. And also it supports early childhood development. This really helps. CWELC helps a lot of families get back into the workforce, which is fantastic. I know I ended up staying home with my second child because it just didn't make sense for me to have two kids in daycare. So not that I necessarily wanted to just stay home, but it would have been nice had this been around. I don't know about you, Jane.
Oh, 100%.
But it would have been, yeah, I didn't have, this just would have given me that option.
Yeah, yeah. I always heard
Yeah,
about Quebec when my kids were little, and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be nice if it was
yeah,
$12 a day? Yeah, because when you put the cost of your childcare compared to how much you may be making at that time, sometimes it just seems like you're spending all your money on childcare. So
yeah,
it is a great benefit for
yeah.
people, for
I
sure.
was spending all my money on just one child in childcare.
Yeah,
I would have needed a second job to send the second one to childcare.
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's a good system for sure.
Yeah. And so we're not quite down to $12 a day yet, but we're
No.
getting there.
When is
Um,
the time frame, Sonia, for that?
so the time frame, I believe the next jump is going to be, the next decrease is going to be this January. We haven't gotten the numbers down yet exactly, but we're working on them. And then the final decrease, I believe, is September. I'm not 100%. They haven't given us that final deadline, but I think their goal is September 2025.
Okay. And that's definitely a good question to ask when you're doing your research if because I know some childcares are opting out. That's been in
Yes.
the news a lot lately.
Yeah.
So that'd be a good question to ask for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, next slide, waitlists and tours.
Yeah, so a lot of questions. That's probably the biggest question I get in my day is about our wait list. Where am I on the wait list? Is there a fee to go on the wait list? So no, you should never be charged a fee to go on a wait list. The wait list is that it's our way of saying our programs are full. You're next in line. It's almost like a here, hold my spot kind of thing. Um, so how that works usually is the first person who joined the wait list would be the first person offered a spot. So that's something you want to question. There are different criteria here at OPCC. The only way someone would get a spot before you, if you had put your name down first, would be as if they had a sibling in our program, or if they were an existing child and they wanted to change to a different program. So those two cases, they tend to get priority. That's the way our wait list is worded, and many other centers do that as well. But that's what you want to ask.
Okay. Well, I think we have a question in the chat.
Sure.
Just a sec. Aaron says, sorry that I missed the first few minutes. I was wondering if there is such a thing as licensed home daycare setting. I'm unsure if home daycares were discussed. I do have my son on the wait list for some centers, just wanting to explore all options.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So there are licensed home childcares, and they also can be participating in CWELC as well. So the licensed home childcare, it's still, again, they can only have a certain number of children in the home. So I believe it's 5. Um, there, and again, that's a great way. There's a little, with a licensed home childcare, there can be a little bit more flexibility sometimes with hours and pickup, whatnot. It may not be, sometimes with in a licensed childcare facility, if you're picking up even 2 or 3 minutes after 6, there can be a late fee of $1 a minute. You may not get that in a home childcare, which is nice. Sometimes they have that flexibility to adjust their hours. Sometimes not. Sometimes you still get that $1 a minute. Again, it just goes through knowing what their policies are. But yeah, that's definitely an option. Home childcare can be licensed. So that means people will be coming in doing inspections. They'll have once a year somebody from the ministry will come in. I say ministry, and as soon as I say it, I think of like Ministry of Magic from Hogwarts, but it's the Ministry of Education.
That'd be more fun.
It would be more fun. But the Ministry of Education comes in and does a yearly inspection, and then they post the results. If there were any non-compliances or things they were finding that they weren't in compliance with, those results are accessible for everyone to see. So it's a great way to check, and that's one of the questions is, you can ask on a tour, or you can ask on the phone is, do you have any non-compliances?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it still through THRC where you can find that list of licensed home care? I know they used to have like a database through
I think so. The region, I know there is one on the region, and that other one that I mentioned, we can put it in the chat maybe. It's called the Ontario Ministry of Education's Childcare Directory. I'm pretty sure that's also still lists the licensed licensed home childcares.
Okay, I will work on doing that, putting that in the chat. Okay.
Sure. So the next thing I would say, really important to do is taking a tour. So you want to take a tour of the child care center. It's really your chance to sneak a peek and see, what it makes you feel like the minute you walk through those doors. You want to see is, do I get a good feeling about this? How clean is it? What does it smell like? Or, how do the children seem? How do the staff seem? So it's a really great opportunity to really go in, really look at the rooms, see, ask all your questions, take lots of notes. It's great if you can take your child with you on the tour just to see how the staff interact with your child. Some of the questions, we'll go through some of the questions I think are good to ask during the tour. The first one, what qualifications do the educators have? So within each room, there should be, depending on the number of children in the room, at least one registered early childhood educator. And again, depending on how many children, you may have 1 or 2, and then you may have another early childhood assistant in there as well. You want to know, what is the child to educator ratio? Are they following the ministry standards for that? What is the center's philosophy or educational approach? How are safety, cleanliness, and hygiene maintained? So again, you get a really great sense. If you walk into a center and you see that it's dirty, that's an indication that, cleanliness isn't a top priority for them. You can usually walk in and you can get a smell as soon as you walk in. Is it clean? Is it too clean? Do I smell bleach? Do
Yeah.
I, you
Yeah.
just want to make sure that all safety protocols are being followed, all health guidelines from public health. So these are the questions you want to ask. You want to ask about the daily schedule. Do they have outdoor time? And, if it's a licensed childcare, yes, they're going to have outdoor time, and they're going to have outdoor time for a minimum of 2 hours every day. If it's a full day program, they'll go out for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. Um, Even if it's cold,
Yeah.
we always say to parents, there is a minimum temperature. The cutoff temperature is, if it's, I don't remember offhand what it is. I think it's, if it feels like -25, they don't go outside. So they might do more gross motor activities in the classroom, but I stress to parents that, going outside in the cold is so good for them. It's good for, building up their immunity. It's so important to be outside, so we just make sure we dress them for the weather. So having boots, having snow pants, having extra mitts and hats available, it's just so important. There's not necessarily any bad weather, just bad clothes.
Exactly. And can I throw in label everything?
Yes.
Label, 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 because children come with the same coats, same boots, same hats, and it's so hard for the educators to keep track of all those different pieces of clothing. And it's sad when somebody loses their favorite mitten or
Yeah.
something. So labeling is really
Yes.
important.
Yeah. Another question to ask, about meals and snacks. Are meals and snacks provided, or do you provide meals and snacks? You want to make sure you know what the center's policy on illnesses or holidays are. If a child is sent home sick, does that mean they can come back the next day, or are they home for, 24 to 48 hours? So you just want to make sure that you know that. The holidays, you want to know, do they offer vacation credit? So do you still have to pay if you decide you're going to go on a 3-week cruise? Most of the time the answer is yes, you're still going to pay, but you want to ask those questions. You don't know unless you ask. You want to ask, how do they manage at nap and rest time? And then a great question, which families sometimes don't realize, you want to make sure that you're asking, are there any other additional costs or fees? So
Mm,
that might look like I mentioned a late fee. There might be a withdrawal fee if you decide, that it's not working, or for any reason you're leaving. What does that look like? So a really good question to ask if there's any additional fees.
right. Okay, that was a lot of information. Is there anybody have any questions at all about any of this so far? Okay, I will move on to the next one. And I think this is me. I'm up now.
That's your turn.
Okay, so what can parents do before your child begins childcare? So there's some things that you can do just to help yourself and your child get prepared before that big step. One of the main things we talk about is helping your child develop trusting relationships with others. We did notice this a lot after COVID for children who were home all the time with their parents or grandparents, and there wasn't that opportunity to get out a lot. That was really challenging for those little guys when they did start going back to childcare and kindergarten. So anytime you can get your little one out to the early on programs, to library programs. I know Halton Region has great, the rec and leisure programs are wonderful, even just to the park. So just meeting other children, meeting other adults is great for you as well, will help build that trust factor with other children and adults before they start going to childcare. practice the routine of leaving your child gradually. So if you have the opportunity, if you can, leave your child with a trusted friend or a grandparent or a babysitter occasionally. That just helps your child prepare for the time that you will be separating from them at childcare. And it gives them a little bit of confidence and it gets them to trust other people a little bit more. Small steps. So if you can do a slow start or staggered entry into childcare, some offer that, some don't. But if that's possible, it's a really good way of starting your little one on that new journey. And I have to say that for some children, they like that. They want to go for 2 hours the first day and half a day the next and build up to that full day if they are going full day. And other kids are ready to go right off the get-go to go full time. So you know your child best, but for some little ones, it's a good idea to do that kind of slow and staggered approach. You should go on a tour if you can, for sure. And then if there's a possibility to bring your child with you, some allow that, some don't, just depending on the situation. If you can have a visit with your little one to meet the teacher, to see the room, that's always good. And at the very least, if you can just walk them or drive them to the center to see the building itself, if there's a park or attached, something like that, it's a good idea just to give them some familiarity before they actually start. And keep your routines consistent as possible at home. I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail, but it's a really good thing to do before they start childcare because childcare is very much about routine. That is to keep everybody safe, to keep everything going, to keep the smooth transitions going. So childcare is very much about routine, as is kindergarten and school going onward. So if you have a routine established at home, that can really help with that transition. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. The power of routine. So I have two examples over here and I'll explain them a little bit more. There's a morning routine and a bedtime routine. And we know that children do best when they can expect what comes next. So just like adults, we like to know what's going to happen next. At least I think most of us do. Some of us maybe don't worry about that so much, but I think for the most part, we want to know what's going to happen in our day. I mean, things are thrown at us all the time, right, Sonia? So,
Oh, yeah.
so that's obviously going to happen. But for the most part, we'd like to have some predictability in our day. Children are no different. In fact, I would say they need that more because their brains haven't fully developed. So they don't really have that understanding of time that we do. So it gives them a sense of consistency and a sense of safety. Routines can also help your children to be more independent because if you can involve them as much as you can in the building of a routine in the day. And so what I mean about routine is that you basically have the same routine at home, same time that you get up in the morning during the weekday, typically breakfast, an activity after breakfast, then you have lunch. Sometimes there's nap time, sometimes there's playtime. You probably go out for a little bit, hopefully to, a library or an early on, something like that. Then it's dinner time and it's time to get ready for bed. That's your typical day before childcare. So if you can involve your child in the routines about getting breakfast ready, what they want to wear in the morning, that kind of thing, then that gives them that sense of control. It gives them a sense of independence that they're helping mommy or daddy or grandma or grandpa create this routine. So that's one really good aspect about it. And as much as possible, try to keep your home routine as consistent as possible. And that's what helps develop that sense of safety and security and predictability that help children with their self-regulation, help calm that anxiety, and help prepare them for the world of childcare and school. Now, having said that, there are of course going to be times and days where that all goes out the window because something happens. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It could be a good thing. Like you have visitors coming over, you're going on a special trip, that kind of thing. So of course, routines are going to change. And that's a good thing too, because that helps children to realize that even though things change, they're still safe because they know that they're going to fall back eventually on that predictable routine, and they have trusted adults in their life. So those are some important things about routines. And along with having routines comes schedules. So with children, part of early childhood, a lot of it has to do with schedules, visual schedules, helping children during the day at daycare, childcare to switch from one thing to another can sometimes be really stressful on some children. So having schedules and a visual schedule in the room really helps them to see what's going to happen next. And that's kind of like this, the morning routine and the bedtime routine. In childcare, it's going to look a little different. If a room does have a visual schedule, and many do, it'll say snack time, playtime, outside time, tabletop time, whatever it happens to be in that day. And so for a child who's anxious to be able to look up on that wall and see that visual schedule, that really helps them go, okay, I can relax because I know what's going to happen next. So you can do that at home too. And there's lots of different visual schedules out there that you can create. Just add all these. So you can involve your child in creating schedules. And I think on the next screen, I have some examples of websites where you can create these schedules. A lot of parents are really interested in doing that. But you don't have to. You could get it like a piece of paper and a marker and crayons and create your own schedule that way with your children. They can be built right into the schedule. So if you see on that example with they have like stickers on their calendar that tell them what's happening on all these different days. So that's one thing you could do. You can use music and songs, which is a mainstay at childcare and kindergarten. I'm sure you've heard your child sing the Tidy Up song if they've heard it somewhere. So using songs is a nice way to help children transition from one thing to the next. You can get really creative with setting schedules. Another thing to consider is timers. So when they are transitioning from one activity to the next, or one routine to the next, that can be really difficult for some children. They don't really want to leave that favorite toy and move on to something else that maybe they have to do, like go to bed. So timers are really helpful. There's a picture there of a visual timer, which is used quite a bit in childcares and schools. So it counts down and that red line will disappear eventually. So if you put it for 15 minutes, it will slowly move until it's at the zero. And that is really helpful for children who are visual learners who need that visual key to see that it's almost time to move on to the next thing. But you can also use those what do you call them? The hourglass.
Hourglass.
Yeah, a lot of kids love that because you can give that to them if they're made of plastic and they can hold it, they'll turn it over for you and they will watch it and they will let you know. When that sand is gone, it's time to move on. Or you can even put an alarm on your phone. And when they hear that alarm go off, then they know it's time to move on. It's really good. Another tip is if your siblings or friends are sharing a toy and doing that back and forth play, and they don't particularly want to give up their turn, if they have a visual schedule or a timer or hourglass, that will help because it's like, oh, my time's up now. It's your time. So that will help with sharing. So it helps with sharing. It helps with routines as well. Um, yeah. So that's my few tips about timers, schedules. Do you have anything to add, Sonia?
No, no,
Okay.
that's, it's especially the timers, the visual timer is really, really nice because if you say to a child, oh, you've got 5 minutes, a lot of times they don't realize what five
Yeah.
minutes is. They don't have that. Is that a little bit or is it a lot?
Right.
So it's nice when they can visualize it. It makes it a little bit more concrete for them.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. Young
Yeah,
children don't have a concept of time.
no.
So they don't understand if you say, "Oh, it's fine. Your mommy's coming later to," we'll talk about pickup time, but your mommy's coming to pick you up at 4 o'clock. they don't know what that means.
They
So
don't know. Yeah. Yeah,
so having a visual schedule is really helpful for that.
absolutely.
Okay. And then the big one is toilet learning in childcare. And I'll just get the points out here. So it's important if you've decided to start working on the toileting process before your child goes to childcare or while they're in childcare, it's really important that you let the child's teachers know when you're starting so that they can be on the same page as you. Working together with the teacher using the same approach and consistency at home and school is going to help the process run so much smoother. So just keep in mind that there are usually a lot of children in these programs and two, maybe three teachers, depending on the ratio and how many children are there. So if 5 children are being learning the toilet learning process, that's a lot for the teachers to be helping with. So the more that you can provide support with that, the better. So it's definitely a team approach. They can't do it by themselves. They need your help. So the more you can do, the better. And some tips are sending your child to school in clothes that are appropriate to toilet learning. So easy to pull on and off. So think like jumpers, stretch pants, that kind of thing, not jeans with tight buttons or overalls, that kind of thing. That just makes it very challenging. Send them with extra diapers or pull-ups and a change of clothes because accidents are normal and they're going to happen. Labeled, everything labeled. And just a reminder that they're going to be helping many children with the toilet learning process throughout the school year. And practice using those toileting strips that I was talking about. There's an example on the slide. Many childcares use this one or something similar. So if you are able to get a copy of that from your teacher, if you know that they're using it at the childcare, you can have the same one at home, and that consistency will really help. And children just like to point to the different pictures of the different steps that they're doing, gives them that feeling of ownership and independence. So those are some toilet learning tips for you. And then fostering independence. This is also really important. So this is a big part of going to childcare. It's a big step for your little one, and they are learning to be more independent at school. So if you can help them at home to prepare before they go, but also just throughout the time that they are at childcare, that will really be beneficial to you, your child, and the teachers. So all that, as much as you can practice, that's great. Dressing, undressing, toileting, hand washing, very important. And name recognition is really important too. It's not that they have to know how to spell their name before they go to childcare or even kindergarten. It's that they can recognize their name because they're going to see their name all over the place on their cubbies, in the classroom at different spots. And they love it when they see their name and they recognize their name. So yeah, different activities you can do at home to help them learn their name is really beneficial.
And a lot of times that just starts with them learning the first letter of their name.
Yes.
And then they can be really upset if, Matthew is in a classroom with Michael because he's like, I'm sorry, Michael, but that M is mine. Like it
It's
can
so,
be,
it's
yeah, they
so
can get quite protective of their letter. So it's quite funny.
It is funny. And it just made me think of I did a program in OPCC that Sonia knows about, obviously, called Ready, Set, School.
Yep.
And there was a little one there, and he had learned his name. Mom had helped him learn his name. And for the next, I don't know, like 3 weeks, every day he'd come in, say his name was Bobby. He'd say, I am Bobby. I, Bobby. He was just, it was so cute. He was so excited. And every time he saw his name, he'd have to pull us over
Yeah.
and show
There
us,
it is.
that's who I am. So yeah, it's very cute. And hanging up clothes, packing a backpack, they can help you with that. That gives them the sense of ownership. Then they know what's in their backpacks. And it's really important that they learn some independence at childcare to help them transition to kindergarten. So they're going to learn how to start putting their shoes on and off and learn how to start hanging up their coat, that kind of thing. So anything you can do at home to help with that process, the better. It's great that you can do that. And tidying up. That's important too. They will get used to that at childcare. They will hear the tidy up song consistently. Um, and it's an important thing to know. That helps with the whole transitioning. I want to go do that activity, but before I do that, I've got to tidy up this first. So it gives them a sense of responsibility, as well. So working on that at home is a good thing. Separation anxiety. This is a big one. It's Separation anxiety is a very normal experience for all children, and it starts in infancy. It can start as early as 8 months. So they're going to go through different stages of that separation anxiety, and one for sure usually happens around going to childcare. And as we said before, young children have limited understanding of time. So it can be very challenging for them to separate when they don't know how long that's going to be. They have no idea what it means if you say, I'll be back in 3 hours. So that's scary, and they don't understand that means. So the more that we can help them with that process, the more we can help reduce that level of anxiety. They are going to act out in different ways. Not all children do. Some do transition a little bit more smoothly than others, but many children have problems in the beginning of being separated from their parents. And so if they cry or they yell or they hit, or they get really quiet and withdraw, those are all normal ways of expressing their feelings, and those feelings just need to be acknowledged. But there are many things that you can do to help your child with the separation process. So when you are dropping off your child, I just have some tips for you. It's always important. You have to say goodbye before you leave. I think there was a time years ago where not we personally, but it would be encouraged for parents just to drop off and go. And we thought that would
Sneak
help.
away.
Yes, the sneak away.
Yeah.
But we realized over time that does not help. That only creates more anxiety. So we always encourage you to say goodbye in a calm and decisive ways, and avoid repeated goodbyes. So leaving and then you hear your child, so you rush back to give them one more hug. Completely understandable, but it doesn't help. And in fact, it makes it worse because it's confusing to your child. Are they going? Are they not going? So that's really important that when you say goodbye and then you leave. And if it's challenging, just know that the caregivers are trained, they're experienced, and they're there to help your little one, with the separation process. And tell your child that you're leaving in a way that they understand. So it could be, the example is, I'm going to work and then I'm going to pick you up after outside time, because they'll come to realize that that is the time that they get picked up, for example, and then we're going to go grocery shopping. So it's something to give them a sense of when you're going to be back and what you might do afterwards. Again, having that visual schedule in the classroom is really helpful, and the teacher can point to the different pictures. See, you're having snack, and then we're playing, and then if they're doing a half a day, then mommy comes to pick you up after. If they're doing a full day, that would look a little bit different. Establish some kind of goodbye ritual. So there's all different kinds. A lot of people have read the book, The Kissing Hand, which I put on the slide. And to be honest, I haven't read the whole book, but I know that the idea is there's a heart. I don't know if you've read it, Sonia, but they put a heart on one hand, the mommy's hand, and a heart on the child's hand. I don't know if it's a sticker or they draw a heart and the two hearts kiss. And then they said, I'll see you when I get back. So that's their little ritual. I'm sure you've heard of other Sonia. Sometimes it's just a special hug, leaving an item that they can keep in their cubby, that kind of thing. Pictures of mom or dad. Have you seen anything else with the goodbye ritual?
Yeah, that's a really big one for us is having a family picture because we have a section in each classroom
Okay.
where the children go throughout the day. So if they're missing mom and dad, sometimes they go and they look and they'll talk to them.
Oh,
Sometimes they want to hold it. Sometimes they just want to show their friends, that's my mommy.
yeah,
So definitely, yeah. Even, a special lovey. You see the little girl with the teddy bear.
yes. Yeah,
Whatever they need for the first little bit of getting through. I know a lot of childcares will say, no, no toys. But there's usually an exception when a child is just adjusting or going through something, they'll
right.
make that exception for them. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's another book that's so good. It's called The Invisible String.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's it gets me every time I read it. I'll be crying by
Oh.
the end of it. Um, but
I'll
it's
add that
so
to
cute. There's like a string that attaches, and you can almost give it a little, you can tell them, just give it a little tug if you need, that lets me know you're thinking of me and I can give it a little tug, and
oh,
it's just a really nice thought.
that's nice.
Yeah,
I will
and
add that to the chat. I'll add those two books to the chat in a minute so
sure.
people yeah.
And another thing is find out what do they say in your child's classroom? What do the teachers say? So you can be saying the same words. So I know when I was in the classroom, I always said, mummies and daddies always come back.
Right.
First play, then mummies and daddies come back. So just keeping it simple
Yeah,
and repeating the same words. It goes again, what Jane was saying, that consistency and predictability is so very important to them.
yeah,
So if they're getting the same message from everyone, it's really, it does wonders in making them a smooth transition to coming to childcare.
definitely. That's right. And like you said, with the items like the teddy bear, the blanket, that kind of thing, making sure that they're labeled so that then
Yeah,
when they get to the point where they're feeling more secure, they will put it back in their cubby to keep
yeah,
it safe.
yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, and yeah. So read books to your child. There's also YouTube videos, children's YouTube videos you can see about saying goodbye and that mommy and daddy always come back, that kind of thing. And some last thoughts to remember that separation from a parent or caregiver is normal and inevitable part of growing up. And learning to separate is an important childhood skill that will serve your child throughout their lifetime because there's going to be many stages that they go through where there's going to be separation happening right up to those teenage, early 20s where grown kids and parents still struggle, probably parents even more so. But
I
it's,
just dropped my baby off at university this year, and
see?
yeah, it's a good skill to keep practicing because it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. And yeah, it is sometimes harder on the parent than on
Yeah.
the child. Um, a mom gave us a tip at our kindergarten workshop that she wore sunglasses whenever she was dropping her child off in the beginning. You could do this for university too, so that when they're crying, the child can't see them, can't see the tears because they don't want to upset them. So yeah, it's not easy. Doesn't matter how old they are.
No,
Accept all the feelings and don't dismiss how they feel or how they express those feelings. That's really important for you to find a way to acknowledge those feelings. And again, it may not happen at the time of drop off because you are trying to be quick about it as quick as you can, do the calm hug. And but later on you can say, I saw that you were so sad and I understand that you were sad that mommy or daddy are leaving. Just remember that we're always coming back. That kind of thing. It's dismissing and saying, why were you crying? You shouldn't have been crying. That kind of thing. It doesn't help. So acknowledge the feelings. They're important. And then reassure yourself that you've taken all these necessary steps that we've been talking about today to place your child in a safe and nurturing setting, and they're going to be okay. And accept the fact that parental guilt and worry, along with your child's anxiety, is very normal and to be expected at this time. It will get better. Be patient and just give it some time. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Routines, separation anxiety, any of that? No? Okay. I'll put those books in the chat and now I'll give it back to Sonia.
Sure. I won't go too much into this because every childcare is going to
Oh,
have a
sorry.
different schedule. No worries. This is just our preschool daily schedule here at OPCC. So again, as much as we like to have everything scheduled so the children do know what's next, it's also important to be flexible based on what's happening in the classroom, how everybody's feeling. So, that's the biggest thing is yes, we like to be scheduled, but keep your flexibility as well. So you'll notice that again, as I said, they do go outside 2 times a day. We schedule lunch, we schedule snacks. Usually there is scheduled washroom times, but children, we do diaper changes as needed throughout the day. We don't just stick to that schedule. They do their rest period in the afternoon. And yeah, so that's just kind of, like I said, that's our schedule. Our hours that we operate here at the licensed side at the main center is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But often, you want to make sure you know what hours, whatever childcare center you're going to operate.
And then it's different times. There's part-time. So still
Yeah,
half
so
day.
we could
Yeah.
do part-time, so they could come, you could choose 2 days per week or 3 days per week. You could choose all 5 days. We do have a licensed nursery school program, which is just in the morning. So that one runs from 9 to 12. Pickup is at 12. So again, there's lots of choices. You just have to figure out which works best for your family. Everyone's favorite thing. You may hear the first year of childcare, there tends to be a lot of illnesses as they're building up their immunity. I won't touch into it. When I Googled it, I was like, oh, that's so many, that's scary. But I'll just go through kind of some of the top ones you may see. Lots of colds, stuffy noses, a tummy bug. So sometimes you get vomiting and diarrhea, hand, foot, and mouth disease, and also ear infections. So really important. The best thing I can say about preventing these illnesses is if your child is not feeling well, for them to stay home. That is the number one thing, is give them time to kind of bounce back. Otherwise, sometimes if we keep pushing, it just keeps spreading back and forth with all the children. So you want to make sure that if they're not well, they are staying at home. A lot of times, because of the way ratio works, they're still going to be going outside. So, even if they have a cold, sometimes I have parents say, oh, she's not feeling so well today. Can you keep her inside? No, we can't, unfortunately, because of ratio. We don't have extra staff to just stay inside with one child. And as well, it's actually not the cold that makes children sick, it's germs. So it can be quite tricky, but that's the number one thing. So here, so the next thing is, what can we do about it? So number one, hand hygiene. Really teach children how to wash their hands. Washing hands, you can actually sing Twinkle Twinkle or sing the alphabet. That's a great way to keep them engaged and making sure they're getting right in there, front, back, in, out. Really, really, really important. It's always, kids always are shocked when I do this in the classroom to show them, because they think, oh, I washed my hands. But if you put a little bit of glitter on your hands and then you shake hands and then you tell them, oh, that was, the glitter is the cold bug, and they look and they see and they think, oh my goodness. So they love doing that experiment.
I like that.
Yeah. So again, the next one, as I said, staying home when you're sick. The next one after that, number 3, ensure that childcare has good sanitation practices. So making sure that, in the toddler room, if children are putting toys in their mouth, that those toys are then being put in a basket to be washed rather than just back on the shelf for somebody else to put in their mouth. So you just want to make sure that all the health and safety standards are being followed. And then there's just different ways you can boost immune health. So that's, making sure your child is eating balanced meals, making sure your child is getting enough sleep at night, getting some physical activity when they can. So just trying to stay as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
The next thing we'll talk about is immunization. So I don't want to get into, is it right or is it wrong? A lot of childcares require immunization. If your child is not immunized, you can request a formal exemption. There's 2 reasons why you can request a formal exemption, a medical reason. So your child may have a medical reason as to why they can't be vaccinated, or you have a statement of conscience, or a religious exemption. If you choose not to vaccinate your child, what that means is if an outbreak happened to occur in the classroom or in the center, your child may be excluded from coming for the duration of the outbreak because they're at a higher risk of getting that disease and also spreading it to other children. Okay.
Oh, that's it for that one?
I think there's one that somehow we missed. I think, did we talk about? We did talk about the Canada-wide. Yes, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I think that's it.
Okay. Okay. I loved it.
Final thought, yeah, a final thought. Lisa Murphy is an early childhood advocate. You can find her online. She's actually called the Ooey Gooey Lady, and she's quite funny. And she has lots of funny songs and finger plays that she does. But her biggest thing is that parents should trust their gut. Um, Walking in, you really have to trust your intuition. You want to make sure your child is in the best place for them, and you feel confident and comfortable leaving them there. So I really, really, that's the biggest advice I would give anyone is really trust your gut.
Yeah. Best advice ever.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if anybody has any questions. No questions?
No questions?
I must have answered all the questions. No? Okay, if later you think of any questions, Sonia is available. I am available. You can email us if we happen to be there when you drop in and you want to ask a question, you can do that, or just call the main office. Okay. Okay, so I will stop the recording and then stop. And